Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar hosted by the American Academy of Pediatrics and HealthyChildren.org. Today we are discussing helpful ways you can reduce high-calorie and sugary drinks and help your kids choose water instead. A few pieces of housekeeping before we begin. This webinar is being recorded, so if you lose connectivity for any reason, you'll be able to watch and listen to the archived webinar in a week or two. If we can help you with any technical issues during the webinar, please use the chat function to send us a message. We will have time at the end of the webinar for a question and answer session. To ask a question, please use the chat function. You can activate chat by clicking on the speech bubble at the bottom center of your screen, or the person-shaped icon for mobile users. You can send in your questions at any time, and Dr. Shu will get to as many as she can at the end of the presentation. I would now like to introduce our host, Dr. Jennifer Shu. Dr. Shu is a practicing pediatrician, author, and mom in Atlanta. She is co-author of Heading Home with Your Newborn and Food Fights, a frequent guest on national and local television, radio, and web-based programs. Dr. Shu is the medical editor of HealthyChildren.org. She served as a Living Well health expert for CNN.com, has contributed medical information to Baby Center and WebMD, and serves on the Parent Magazine Advisory Board. Welcome, Dr. Shu.
Thank you so much for having me today, and thank you all for joining us. I am so glad to be talking to you all today about how you can help your kids choose healthy drinks, which we all know isn't always easy. We're also going to talk about one of the best choices of drinks for kids, and that's water. I'm hoping this webinar will reinforce some things that you already know, but also add in some helpful tips. And please feel free to make any comments in the chat function as we go through the webinar today. But let's go ahead and get started. So as we know, all living things need water to survive. And in fact, water makes up about 60% of our bodies. And we probably learned this in elementary school. But did you know that 20% of children in the United States do not even drink water on any given day? Many kids and parents are simply unaware that not drinking enough water can have a negative impact on their health. Water benefits the human body in many ways. It helps with blood circulation, which is essential for the function of all of our organs and tissues. It also transports nutrients and waste to and from cells. Water regulates our body temperature. And finally, water is like a lubricant and shock absorber for the body, which is really important for protecting our joints as we run and play. So really all of our systems, our cardiovascular system, our respiratory system, digestive tract, reproductive system, kidneys, liver, and even the brain and the rest of the nervous system, all depend on good hydration in order to function effectively. And water is super healthy. It hydrates us, but does so with 0 calories and no sugar. And that's why, along with milk, plain water is really the best drink choice for kids and for adults. So how much water do kids need? As you can see from this chart, on any given day, about 70 to 80% of the water that we need comes from beverages and the rest from food. And for kids starting around 6 months of age, you can start to introduce plain water to your baby. They only need about 4 to 8 ounces or up to 4 to 8 ounces per day of water, which is 1/2 to 1 cup, until they're a year old, because the rest of their liquids are coming from breast milk or formula. Kids from 1 to 3 years need about 4 cups of beverages per day, which is about 32 ounces, including water and milk. And then this increases to around 5 cups or 40 ounces for 4 to 8 years old, and 7 to 8 cups or up to 64 ounces for older children. Keep in mind that these amounts will vary by individual and may need to be adjusted depending on how active your kids are and on environmental conditions such as how hot or humid it is outside. So a question I get asked a lot is whether a kid is getting enough water each day. And these numbers may actually surprise you. In fact, if your kid isn't getting enough water each day, keep in mind that they're not alone. Research shows that most kids are not getting enough water throughout the day. For example, 75% of 4 to 8 years old 13-year-olds are not meeting this daily required intake, or DRI, for fluids, and most of them are short by an average of about 6 ounces per day. And in older children, it's even higher. 85% of 9 to 13-year-olds are not getting that daily required intake, and these children are short by an even larger amount. So why does it matter that kids are behind on their fluids? Well, we know that declines of even 2% of body water can affect both cognitive and physical performance. And that's when we see things like um, problems at school, such as decreases in alertness, concentration, short-term memory, and physical endurance, which can also affect a child's sports performance as well. So if kids are not drinking water, what are they drinking? Well, you've probably guessed it, it's sugary beverages. The latest dietary guidelines that were just published in December 2020 by the US Department of Agriculture and the Department of Health and Human Services recommend that starting at the age of 2, less than 10% of your child's daily calories should come from added sugars. But we know that too many kids are getting too much sugar from what they drink. In fact, most kids only get about 30% of their fluid intake from plain water and about 40% from sugary beverages. And that can add up. And as you can see here, a can of soda can contain about 10 teaspoons of sugar. So that's why I often tell parents to skip the sugary drinks, even if they say they're made for kids. In fact, you may need to be extra careful when choosing drinks that are marketed to kids. These usually contain way more sugar than kids need in a day and can contribute to poor health. So here's what to avoid. Sugary drinks, you can make it a rule, no sugar sweetened beverages for children who are less than 2 years of age, and try to limit these for older children also as much as possible. These beverages include sports drinks, juice cocktails, sodas, lemonades, and sweetened teas, and more. Sweetened drinks can make it hard to establish a habit of drinking plain water, and they can also add empty calories to your child's diet. They can leave your kids less hungry for the nutritious foods that they really need. Added sugars can also lead to excess weight gain, dental cavities, diabetes, and more. Juice may sound like a good beverage option. Even though 100% fruit juice contains some vitamins, these drinks are still high in sugar and calories and don't offer the benefits of fiber that you can find in whole fruit. And because of its sweet taste, once kids are offered juice, it can be really hard to get them to drink plain water. The bottom line is that juice should be limited, so keep these amounts in mind. Children less than a year should not drink any juice at all unless recommended by your pediatrician. Children 1 to 3 years of age should have no more than 4 ounces of juice per day, and that's less than the size of a small juice box. For older children, juice is only recommended if whole fruits aren't available. Children ages 4 to 6 should not drink more than 4 to 6 ounces per day, and children ages 7 to 18 should not drink more than 8 ounces per day. Flavored cow's milk can be another tricky one. And even though you get the benefits of calcium and vitamins found in regular cow's milk, flavored cow's milk can be high in sugar. These added sugars should be avoided to discourage a preference for sweet flavors, which, as we mentioned with juice, can make it difficult to have success when offering regular milk. So keep the flavored milks as an occasional treat rather than an everyday drink. Or you may opt to add the flavoring yourself using syrup or powder so you can control how much sugar is added. You can also dilute flavored milk with regular cow's milk to make it less sweet. And remember that cow's milk is not recommended at all for babies under 1 year of age because they have trouble processing it. According to the new dietary guidelines, milk alternatives made from soy, oat, rice, coconut, and almond should not be used in the first year of life. Stick with breast milk and formula in that age group. In the second year of life, the guidelines say you can give your child small amounts of unsweetened versions of these beverages, but most have significantly less protein than cow's milk and are not always fortified with calcium and vitamin D. Only fortified soy beverage is currently considered a dairy equivalent. Because the health risks for children from stevia and artificial sweeteners are not well understood, it's thought that it's best to avoid these drinks too in kids. As I mentioned, some parents have a hard time getting their kids to drink water throughout the day. Why is that? Well, research shows that some kids just don't think it's cool to drink water, while others want to drink the sugary drinks that they see advertised on TV, or they might seek out products that celebrities or sports heroes promote. So, how do we cut the sugar and get our kids to drink more water? The good news is that water does not have to be boring. There are plenty of ways to encourage everyone in the family to drink water to stay hydrated throughout the day. And here are some twists to add some fun. You can infuse water with lemons, berries, cucumber, or mint for some added flavor. This is an easy way to keep the whole family coming back for refills. Keep fruits and vegetables that are high in water content handy, and there are plenty of them. Some of the best vegetables to choose from are cucumber, zucchini, iceberg lettuce, celery, and tomato. Top fruits high in water content include watermelon, cantaloupe, strawberries, blueberries, and grapefruit. You can give your kids water with special water bottles or cups that are just for them, such as a personalized sports bottle or a water bottle they can decorate with stickers for on the go. You can also add a fancy cup with an umbrella or swirly straw for drinking water at home. Adding a festive touch like this can go a long way. Also, try freezing small pieces of fruit inside ice cubes. These can dress up drinks at any table, and your young children can help fill up the ice trays. You can also keep small, easy to open containers of frozen fruit in your freezer and let your kids pick which fruit to put in their water instead of ice cubes. Try making your own popsicles with pureed fruit for an afternoon cool down, and make it fun family activities by using small paper cups and let your kids decorate them before filling, or look for popsicle molds that come in all kinds of fun shapes and colors. You can come up with a fun reward system to encourage your kids to drink more water, such as giving them a sticker when they've done a good job of drinking water that day, and have a water only rule when eating out at restaurants. If your kids like a little fizz, try carbonated water or seltzer water for a change of pace. And you can also add fruit to this kind of water just as you would to plain water. Try playing some games, such as a counting game where you count how many sips it takes for your kid to finish their water, or pick a flavor out of a hat to get a flavor of the day to add to your child's water. If your child is really stubborn about wanting juice or other sweet beverages, water it down. Start small and gradually add more water to help your child get used to the taste. In time, your child should start to embrace water instead of sugary drinks. And for older kids, turn to technology. There's probably an app for that that you can download to their tablet or smartphone that will remind them to drink more water, or just use an alarm on the phone. And these can add a little bit of fun to their usual daily reminders. Don't forget that being a good role model yourself is a great way to help make water part of your children's routine, and it gets them in the habit of drinking water. It's not always easy to do this since many of us grew up drinking soda or juice or other drinks that we now know have too much sugar in them. But remember, your kids watch what you do. And a simple change of making water the main choice for your whole family can help your kids choose water as their first choice when they're thirsty. You can also think about ways you can encourage kids to choose water in your community too, such as in your local school, for example. Does your child's school have a policy about making water available to students throughout the day? Are they allowed to carry their water bottles to class? Does the school have clean, safe water fountains? Do the school lunches give access to water? Or do vending machines offer water? And during sports, are kids offered water, or is it always sugary sports drinks and juice? Having clean, safe, healthy water easily accessible to our kids throughout the day can go a long way to helping them cut out sugary drinks and choose water instead. As I mentioned, staying hydrated is good for your child's overall health, but even with the best habits and intentions, sometimes trouble can arise. So it's important to know the signs of dehydration so you can address them quickly. And if at any point your child displays symptoms that are concerning, call your pediatrician or seek medical help right away. For infants, some of the most noticeable symptoms of dehydration in this age are fewer wet diapers, with a typical range being 6 to 8 in a 24-hour period, being overly sleepy, having a sunken soft spot or fontanelle on the baby's head, and having no tears when crying. For this stage, if you're worried that your infant isn't getting enough to drink, call your pediatrician immediately. As children get older, they're better able to tell you how they're feeling. However, it's still necessary to keep an eye on them since children at play often have a hard time stopping. Symptoms in this age group include dry lips or sticky mouth, less urination or darker colored urine. And remember, urine should be very light yellow or almost clear. They may be sleepy and irritable and have flushed skin. In teens, dehydration is a big risk, especially if they do high intensity workouts or heavy team practices. And most common signs for this age group are dry lips or mouth, lightheadedness, cramps, thirst, dark or decreased urine, a headache, rapid pulse, flushed skin, and feeling excessively hot or cold. Of course, we want our kids to stay active. And being active is an important lifestyle choice for every member of your family. But there are times when your child may need additional water to prevent dehydration, like during sports or other physical activities. So it's a good idea to have your child drink water before, during, and after vigorous exercising, such as for sports practices or games. And here are some good amounts of water for kids to drink when exercising vigorously or sweating. Kids from 9 to 12 years of age generally need to drink about 4 to 8 ounces of water every 20 minutes to stay hydrated. And teens may need to drink around 12 to 16 ounces of water every 20 minutes. And remember, it's not just athletes who are at risk for dehydration. Playing at the park, for example, may not bring the same level of intensity, but if your child is sweating, make sure they're adequately replacing their fluids. So to review, helping your kids to choose water as their preferred beverage will keep them healthy and well hydrated and help cut down on the amounts of sugar they get from sugary beverages. Make water available throughout their day and be a good role model yourself. Keep an eye out for any signs of dehydration. And of course, talk with your pediatrician if you have any concerns about your child's health or nutrition. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Shu, for all that great information. We have some time now to answer some questions. If you have not already done so, please use the chat window to send questions. Dr. Shu will try to respond to questions in the order they arrive. However, she may not be able to answer all the questions. Here is our first question.
So the first question I got is, what's the best way for my baby to introduce my baby to water? So as we mentioned earlier, the recommendation is to start introducing babies to water around 6 months of age. And this timing coincides with when it's recommended to start introducing your baby to a sippy cup or a straw cup or an open cup, with the goal of trying to get them off the bottle around a year of age or so. Um, so some babies will take to water in a sippy cup very easily. Others are still more reliant on a bottle, so it's fine to try maybe a few sips or even an ounce or two at first in 6-month-old babies. I do find that sometimes babies will get confused or they get finicky about what beverage comes in what kind of container. So if they're used to getting breast milk or formula in from a breast or a bottle and only get water in a sippy cup, then it's hard for them to make the transition to having breast milk formula or cow's milk in a sippy cup when it comes time to switch over to regular milk after about a year. So what I suggest to people is if they're already used to drinking breast milk or formula from a breast or bottle, then get them used to drinking what they already know in a sippy cup first, and then start introducing water in the sippy. And that way you're just introducing one new thing at a time. So that's an excellent question. Let me see what else is there. The next question is, how can I convince my children's grandparents to stop giving them juice? So this is an excellent question because a lot of times, grandparents might treat the children differently than parents would. They might have more treats in the house because they're they don't see the children maybe all the time every day. And so they think of things as more special occasion foods or drinks and might kind of want to spoil the kids a little bit more than a parent would on a daily basis. What I do is I try to educate the grandparents about the importance of healthy habits. And in general, I do like to encourage healthy beverages and foods and healthy activities for all family members, not just for kids. So everyone should be eating and drinking healthy. Everyone should be getting enough exercise. And we shouldn't single out certain people who can and can't have juice, for example. So with grandparents, just get them involved in all the healthy habits, focus on whole fruits and vegetables. You can give them easy guidelines, such as offering milk with meals and water with snacks. And, as with anything, keep things that you want to limit out of the house as much as possible. So if you don't want your children drinking sweetened beverages, don't have them in the house. The next question is it possible to give my baby too much water? Um, so yes, especially in the first year, having too much water, too much fluid can sometimes be harmful to baby. And the reason for that is babies can't always tell us if they're getting too much water or feeling too full. Having breast milk or formula will give the amount of fluid that most babies need. And starting at about 6 months, you can start supplementing that with a little bit of water. It's very important not to overdo it though, so no more than the recommended 4 to 8 ounces that we recommended in the first 6 to 12 months of life. And when you're doing things like mixing infant formula with water, it's really important to follow the instructions so that the baby gets the perfect balance of either powdered or concentrated formula with water. Too much water compared to formula, for example, can result in an electrolyte imbalance that can cause health problems in babies. So really important to read those labels and watch the amounts that you're giving. The next question is, how do I wean my teen off of soda? This is a great question. We talked about soda having maybe 10 teaspoons of sugar in one can. And the recommendation for children over the age of 2 is a maximum of 25 grams or 6 teaspoons of sugar per day. So teenagers especially can understand things like the importance of healthy habits, and they can look at labels to look at the grams of sugar. What I usually do for my teens is I say, well, you can have X amount of grams of sugar per day, and then it's up to you to decide how you want to spend that up. And so they might say, well, then I won't have soda, but I still want a little ice cream for dessert, or I want some cookies with my snack at lunch. And you give them a little bit of power or control in how they divide up their maximum allotment of sugar. Another way to entice teens is to make it kind of more of a financial goal for them. If they can see that spending money on soda can add up to be very expensive, maybe get them to help make a budget for spending that kind of money. And what you could do is any money that might originally go to soda, you could give a portion of that to them to put into a bank for something a fun activity or a fun game that they might spend it on later. Like with any habit, it's easier to take baby steps to make improvements than to make drastic changes. So if somebody's drinking 5 bottles of soda on a day, it might be really hard for them to go from 5 to 0. So you could say for the next week, let's go from 5 bottles to 4 per day, and so on, to make it more of a gradual change so that it's not so hard to do and not so hard to stick with. I use that kind of mentality also if somebody's eating fast food multiple times a week, for example. Let's cut down the number of times with the ultimate goal of making a huge improvement within a month or two. So set achievable goals. Same thing goes with exercise. My kids who aren't getting enough exercise, the patients in my practice who aren't exercising at all, I have them set a very manageable goal, whether that's starting at 10 to 20 minutes a day or 1 to 2 times a week, and then increasing to at least 30 to 60 minutes on most days of a week. I don't expect them to train and run for a marathon right away. So make small, manageable, achievable goals so you can stick with them better. Let's see. Some people ask about an app for tracking water. I'm sure there's an app for that. I don't personally use an app for that. But what I do sometimes say is if you can fill up a certain number of water bottles per day so you can physically see as you drink them, then it's a good way to meet the water requirements. And so just line them up and have the kids see how they're making it through the day. Um, and use a favorite container, you know. For me, it's an insulated water. It was one of those metal water um, big cups that keeps my ice super cold for 2 days. I just happen to like drinking cold water. And so that's what works for me. But for somebody else, it might be something different. So use an app or count it out and set it out at the beginning of every day, or set a certain amount out for breakfast and set out some for lunch and some for snacks and some for sports and some for dinner. So whatever works best for you. Our next question is, how do you get your kids to choose healthy foods and beverages outside the home? So that is a great question. And you know, especially pre-pandemic, kids were going over to friends' houses, spending more time with relatives, going out to eat, where, you know, the things that you have in those places aren't what you're necessarily used to inside your own home. So one of the things that we talked about in the webinar was make it a point to choose water at restaurants. That's one easy rule of thumb. Um, you know, I prefer to eat my calories rather than drink them a lot of the time. So I'll have, you know, more food at a restaurant and save my calories for that, and drink water. Um, there are some guidelines about making 80% of your diet healthy and allow for the other 20% to be kind of less healthy or in moderation. So that's a concept that especially teens can follow. If a child's going to a birthday party, for example, you can give them guidelines in advance, you know. So yes, if you are offered cake and ice cream, that's fine, but make sure you choose water. Um, that's a good way of having kids have some expectation in advance. Another concept that kids can understand is to picture their plate and make half of that fruits or vegetables. About a quarter of that, the plate should be protein, and a quarter can be healthy grains and carbs. And if they imagine filling themselves up at every meal or over the course of the week, half of everything they eat is fruits and vegetables, then that can kind of increase the amount of healthy foods they eat and leaves less room for less healthy things also. Um, and it'll ensure that your child gets plenty of vitamins and minerals in their diet that way. So those are some tools for thinking outside of the house. Okay. The next question I got is, what is the best way to create a balance so that my child doesn't think that there is a good or a bad food? And this person had concerns about labeling food and the impact that it has on eating disorders. So this is an excellent question, especially during the pandemic. In the past year, I've seen that many of the patients in my practice have had a lot of excessive weight gain. Many have also just managed to stay on track. Some have gained and then lost and gotten back to their baseline. But a handful of my patients have had severe eating disorders during this pandemic. So yes, this is an excellent question. I also think it's important not to label foods as good and bad. And also, we don't want to focus so much on body image, but on health and being strong and being able to function well in activities and sports. So what I suggest is maybe kind of think of foods as some foods that you might have more of or less of. So more of being fruits, veggies, water, milk, and less of being processed foods or added sugars and added fats foods, sweets, candies, um, salty snacks. Some people use a green light, yellow light kind of philosophy. So green foods are foods that you can have anytime, there's no limit on them. Whereas yellow foods, more in moderation or more sometimes foods. Um, Honestly, I don't know that I can think of any foods that would be a red light food for a child. Um, in general, moderation is key. So that is a good concept for kids to have at any age and throughout adulthood. Um, you can take advantage of smaller portions that are already out there, such as 100-calorie packages of cookies or snacks. That might be one way that you can kind of give your kids treats while limiting their portion size, or just figure out the portions yourselves, and you can put them aside and pre-package them to be ready for your child. Um, Then we have one other question, and that is, what are your thoughts on sugar-free versus regular sugar soda and other drinks? Excellent question. As we mentioned in the webinar, there really hasn't been enough research on artificial sweeteners in kids and what amounts may or may not be safe. So personally, I'm a go big or go home person. I prefer regular sugar. I prefer regular fat rather than fat-free. Um, but if you are going to use sweeteners, I would consider using them sparingly or in moderation, and same thing with regular sugar and regular fat. Your ultimate goal for kids is to get them to embrace plain water. So if the short-term use of a sweetened beverage or watered down sugary drinks or artificial sweeteners will help you reach that goal, I think that's fine in the short term, but you may want to talk to your pediatrician about more details. And then keep in mind that if you're choosing either some kind of carbonated water for your child, whether it's plain or flavored, check the labels because some of them do contain hidden additives such as sweeteners and sodium that you might not realize are already in there. So I think that's all the time we have for the talk today. And I'm going to turn it right back over to the host.
All right. Well, thank you again, Dr. Shu. Great information. And just a reminder, we invite you all to register on healthychildren.org to receive our e-newsletter, a personalized homepage, and special offers. Don't forget to follow healthychildren.org on Instagram, Facebook, Pinterest, and Twitter. And a special thank you to our sponsor, Nestle Waters of North America. Thank you again, everyone, for joining us. We hope you enjoyed today's webinar. Keep an eye out for a quick survey, and please let us know what your thoughts were on today's webinar. Have a great day.